Oh, that one's got Falco.
All right, we should be live any second.
There you go.
Get that ding on the phone. Oh, dude.
I love bottom left.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
That's pretty good.
Okay, I see us live.
You see us live? Okay.
Indeed.
So for those who are watching us live early, we're trying to figure out ideas for a thumbnail. So Wolf's messing around with Midjourney for me. And what was the prompt, Wolf? I'm showing you on screen right now.
Oh, is this the last one?
Yeah, the current one.
Okay. So this is a photograph of Adam Driver dressed as Star Fox in a Wes Craven film.
It's beautiful.
That one with the bird is terrifying.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have a thumbnail. I'll use the top left one, I think, right? That looks good.
If that were Falco, he'd be a lot scarier.
If he had the fox hat with Falco, then that would make sense.
It's wild. All right. Oh, I gotta hit recording. There we go. Now we're recording.
I remember my
all right,
first
Chard, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Do a barrel roll! Today on.
You know, when you said, Jake, do you have an opening line? And I said, no, you said you had one. And you're asking me like I would know what you're going to say. And I didn't. Of course it's barrel roll. You're right. I should have fucking got that.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I was going to say, come on.
Either.
Yeah.
Come on.
We're both bozos.
Yeah, I should have gotten that. All right. Welcome, everybody. Another week of Press B to Cancel, your favorite retro gaming podcast. This week, we're going to be discussing Star Fox, specifically the Super Nintendo versus the N64 version. But I think Wolf has played Star Fox Zero in the past, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm your host this week, Jake. But I'm not alone. No, I brought in three wingmen, starting off with Fox McCloud himself. Werewolf, how you doing this week?
I'm doing my best. Andros isn't having his way with me.
Well, not in this movie. And also joined by Peppy Hare, Sinistar. How you doing this week?
Good. I wish you'd quit shooting me, though.
And a quick shot, bit of an asshole, Falco. Oh, hi, Chard. How are you doing this week? It was either that or
Please
Slippy.
Stop stealing my targets. Please stop stealing my targets.
All right. So this is a fun episode. Go ahead.
No. Okay. Please continue.
Okay. So I mean, this is a fun episode, I think, for me. So first off, I've been meaning to go back to fuck Dr. Pepper. By the way, that should be on the bingo card. Since start holding up a Dr. Pepper and Chard, of course.
Oh my gosh.
Of course. You realize we'll never get sponsored because I shit on them too much. But look, I've been wanting to play Star Fox on the Super Nintendo.
Kraft macaroni and cheese and tuna.
Okay, look, we don't want to go back into Kraft dinner and how to make it better when you're poor. I'm just going to say for those watching live now, Kraft dinner, add tuna, add peas, and you got a dinner.
Throw up.
That's all I'm saying. It's a Canadian favorite.
Vomit.
It's
not
garbage.
vomit.
Disposal fuel.
Look, you're the country that puts freaking chips and crackers on top of casserole. Don't tell me about garbage, okay?
Look,
It's cornflakes.
I enjoy my cornflakes on top of potatoes, sir.
Cornflakes?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? No.
Yeah.
No.
Cornflakes on top of homemade mac and cheese.
Or au gratin potatoes.
Popular.
Or au gratin potatoes.
That too.
The au gratin's good too.
Why are you mixing
yeah.
breakfast cereals with dinner? That's gross. No. You guys think I'm crazy.
Sinstress, imagine tuna casserole with the powdered cheese flavoring, and I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Okay.
You just
Are you telling me
sauce or ketchup, and that's
we're
it.
going to get
It's
into it?
done.
Tuna casserole. Who the hell does not put cheese on their tuna casserole? Everybody does that. Everybody puts cheese on their tuna casserole. You guys are nuts. I don't get this. Is like you'll put chips and corn flakes, but you won't put cheese on tuna casserole. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's insanity, is what it is. Anyway, I don't have YouTube chat open right now, but if I did, I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of people agreeing with me that cheese on tuna casserole is an amazing thing.
We hit our first tangent before we even got into the episode.
I'm gonna have to cut this out of.
I'm just trying to
post.
carry that Falco energy into the podcast.
Yeah, you're doing a bang up job. All right, look, I love Star Fox on the N64. I'm so angry I've hit my mic, and I've been wanting to play the Star Fox on Super Nintendo for years, and I always try. And I usually fail in the first 5 minutes of the game. So I really did want to contrast the two games and whether one still holds up or not in today's day, right? So I'm going to start off with, I guess, let's just break it down. We'll keep it orderly and just talk about maybe the graphics of both the games. Obviously, they're N64 is N64. It looks better. But when we look at the Super Nintendo Star Fox and its graphics, I think it used the FX chip, right? Did anybody look up the FX chip?
Yes.
Does anybody want to talk about that a little bit and how that was really cool?
I didn't look it up, but I did watch. I swear it was like Gaming Historian or somebody in that group that did a history of Star Fox, and if I remember right, it was a third-party developer that I think they wanted to use it for something else, and then they ended up basically partnering with Nintendo to make a game and add this chip in. And I think it's also used in one of your favorite games, Donkey Kong Country, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it?
I don't think it was in that.
Spitballing here.
I don't think so. It was used in Star Fox, Dirt Racer, Dirt Tracks FX, Stunt Race FX, or Wild Tracks, as it's known in some regions, Vortex, Doom, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and Winter Gold.
So Yoshi's Island 2. Yeah, I think it used it because of this extra scaling ability it had in that game.
Yeah, the sprite scaling was kind of off the charts in that game.
Yeah. The rest of the game we won't talk about, but the scaling was cool. Right. So it was a custom chip that was used in a handful of Super Nintendo games, and it really did bring something special to the graphics power of the console, something that was never really replicated on the Genesis. I mean, the closest they got was virtual racing, and as much as I love virtual racing, and I do,
blast processing, son.
Look,
let's not mess
again.
with it.
You and I agree on so many things. I'm a Genesis kid too, Chard. I love Genesis just as much as you, but I'm telling you, it didn't have the power of the FX chip. So, but we should talk about. I know we did an episode a long time ago, and Stunt Race FX came up. And my complaint against that game was the frame rate was abysmally terrible. It was just chunky. It was slow. It was sluggish. I didn't like it at all. Although I think, Wolf, you disagreed with me and you liked that game. How did you feel about Star Fox? Because to me, Star Fox's frame rate is pitifully low.
Okay, so I'm probably in the minority in general here. I was never a big fan of Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. The tech was cool. I thought the tech was cool as hell, but I thought the gameplay was kind of slow. I was never much of a shooter player anyway. I didn't much care for Gradius and R-Type and things like that. There's a handful of games in those styles that I like, and I know Star Fox is an on-rail shooter instead of a shmup, but it's similar-ish. And I don't know, it playing it this week, it kind of reminded me of Space Harrier, but slower.
I can kind of,
and I'm probably gonna get hate for that too. But
no, definitely, I can see. I like the Super Nintendo Star Fox, but I can definitely see that.
But yeah, it's not for me, and that's why I'm not a fan of it. But like technologically speaking, it was awesome. It was a massive leap forward for the Super Nintendo
Oh,
specifically.
for sure.
And I played the crap out of Stunt Race FX, which used that same chip. The chip wouldn't really be there if it weren't for Star Fox, right? So
I like the
Yeah.
concept and like the third person view and the mobility of the game. Now, I mean, polygons were kind of, I don't want to say unheard of, but it felt like it was kind of an unheard of thing outside of the arcades, right? You had like
Right.
Virtua Fighter and things like that had like the more polygon kind of look. And now you have this on your home console at home. I was a big TIE Fighter X-Wing player on the PC. I loved those games growing up. Now, I know that this was, I think, probably a little bit before all that, or maybe around the same time. I'm not sure. I don't have
It's
my
about the
dates
same
right.
time,
around
I
the
think.
same time.
Yeah.
But I like now this is a rail shooter while those other ones were more open space doing flips and stuff. But you could do a barrel roll in this. You can do the backflips and do the dodging, and you could lose your wing, and there was some really cool aspects to it that I thought was really awesome. So I mean, the frame rate thing didn't bother me. That I never was really that observant, I guess, as a kid playing it. I was just flying a jet, shooting shit down, and I thought it was kind of neat. Playing it back, I was playing it on my Steam Deck before when we were discussing doing this episode again. I forgot how freaking difficult it is, but we are
It's
spoiled.
hard.
I mean, we're definitely spoiled these days.
Yeah.
From all the nice new stuff in Star 64, which we'll get into a little bit, is obviously a very well polished version of this particular game. But I have nothing but mad respect, and I do really still like Star Fox, even though I was having some trouble in the asteroid field. I still really enjoyed playing this game, so this one's high on the list for me.
By the way, I looked it up. Star Wars X-Wing and Star Fox were the same year.
See,
nice.
There you go.
So
okay.
to give you kind of a concept, like we had polygon games on PC, and the consoles had not really brought them to light until the Super FX chip, right? I mean, that was really the problem that we had with the consoles at the time, is they were still sprite based. I mean, everything was sprite based, right? And so this kind of bridged that gap. And so and really brought it to the console.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't really get polygons properly until Saturn and PS1, right? So this is definitely ahead of its time. I just wish the performance was better. That's my only thing. When I tried playing this, I know offline I mentioned like I found it sluggish, and I think Sinister, you mentioned how not everything was 60 frames per second back then. I thought everything was, but I'm probably thinking rose tinted glasses when I played retro.
Yeah, you were saying like 29.
Well, it's I mean, it's interlaced 29.97 per interlace. So really, for a full frame, you are getting roughly 60 frames, but it's half frames, right? So your eye is doing the translation. So really, you're actually seeing 30, as it were. So yeah, but the thing is even at 30 frames, I mean, I'm gonna go back on what I was saying when we were talking in Marco Polos before this episode, and really kind of say Star Fox is slow. It really genuinely is. It's not a frame rate, or it's not a the television issue. It's not 30 frames. It's probably closer to 15 frames, honestly. And at 15 frames, the human eye, yeah, you can see frames for sure, pretty easily.
Yeah.
So
it's not cinematic.
That's right. That's right. And then I think the other thing that kind of comes out, and I love this game as well, but for me, it's probably the nostalgia tinted glasses, because I had a Super Nintendo. Like, that was kind of my first console, was a Super Nintendo, because my little brother was young enough that my parents got him a console. They hated us playing video games, and then my little brother came around. He's 10 years younger than I am, and they got him the console. And so it's a little bit of the rose tinted glasses, but I would also say I really feel like there was additional delay introduced from the controls talking to the Super FX chip, right? And so I think you have the delay of 15 frames per second, but I think you're also, even at 15 frames per second, I think you're still talking like 2 frames of response time, right? I mean, so that's a lot, right? And so really, I think the way that we got good at this game was repetition, right? Okay, I know what's coming
Right.
up. I've got to do a barrel roll here.
Right. But I mean, it's the same thing as if you're playing a platformer, right? It's all about
Sure.
memorization. It's Battletoads, right? It's memorizing
Yeah.
what's set up. Now, I know this is obviously not even the same like vein as a platformer or anything like that. It's a totally different play style. But I mean, it's all about memorizing what's coming up next. They were still using that same kind of play style of, well, we'll just have them keep running the thing over and then they'll memorize the level and then you can move on from there. I found that once I played it a couple extra times, it was like, oh yeah, remember this guy comes out here, this guy comes out here. It's like Radius. It's like
There's going to be the walking
super
thing.
type. Right.
Yeah.
You know they're coming. It's
Yeah.
you just need to plan ahead for it and then play it. It's just all in third and first person views in the game instead of the side shmup scroller. It's still a shmup essentially, but it's just not. It's not like a bullet hell shmup. Right.
Now
exactly.
I want to bring up one thing that I like literally just came into my head, and that is the end boss music. Not the end boss, but like stage boss music, right? That's that like, and every time like that kind of has tingles for me a little bit. Like that was big. That was big for me.
We'll get to music. Don't trust me. Music is a big part of why I like these games. So I guess frame rate aside, I do like the design of the ships. I like that polygon style. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of like Tron, for example. I really do like the style of it. Plus, the character designs of all the wingmates is really cool. It's not polygons. It's it's actual sprites. The presentation is really cool. It looks really good. The frame rate's a little slow. I mean, we're watching the gameplay as we talk now.
And the reaction of the control.
Yeah, and the controller's sluggish, yeah. But I forgot that, because that's how bad I am at this game when I was playing this week. In the asteroid level, you actually have the first-person view, like a first ship view from behind the cockpit. Yeah. That's actually really rad. That looks really good.
In on something, I was like, how do I get out of first person? I don't want to be in first person. Then I was like, oh, wait, that's right. They force you into first person.
Right.
From these levels.
But it's neat, though, and I like the asteroids, how they explode, and its pixel explosions are actually really solid. Like, it's really cool. It is a really cool look. So I want to switch over to the flip side there on the N64 version of Star Fox, which, despite it being obviously a different console generation, there's definitely a lot of the style from the Snes game brought over to the N64, right? The ships are still very much rudimentary polygons, right? They look better, obviously, but they're very much inspired by the original game. And even the enemy designs look very similar. The shots have that same shape to them, and I think it's pretty rad. What do you guys think about the N64 version of Star Fox? Did you guys have a chance to play this one at all?
I did not, but I wanted to point out one thing. You said earlier that the Saturn and the PlayStation were really kind of where polygons started. Nintendo 64 was really where polygons started, honestly. Polygons. So, I mean, really, I don't think that I think that there's kind of a secondary sprite mechanism on the 64, and it was really meant to be rendered polygons.
I'm trying to think, like, the Saturn was the first console that could do 3D, I think, right? I know many of the games just went with sprites anyway, but I think it was technically the first. And I'm trying to remember PlayStation and N64 when they released.
I'm pretty sure Saturn was first to market of the three.
Was it?
Yeah.
But like,
because Saturn beat PlayStation on market by 6 months or something, or maybe it was 3. I don't know. And then N64 came out after both of those, I believe.
I think so.
Well, then, for some reason in my brain, the 64 was always first out of those three. For some reason in my mind palace.
Well, the thing with Saturn is when I think
they were
3D
just more
graphics,
popular.
Bug is what pops up in my head, and nobody likes Bug.
Bug was okay.
Oh, it was awful. But anyway, or Penzar Dragoon was on Saturn, and that looked okay.
More popular. Like the 64 was widely more popular than the Saturn at the time, right?
Everything was more popular than the Saturn.
Yeah.
I'm right. So that's probably why we're always like, when did the Saturn come out? When did that thing hit? I don't even remember. I was so hung up on Mario 64 and all that other stuff.
Saturn was 94 in Japan.
Yeah.
And
super
95
early
in America.
Yeah.
And the 64 was 96. So yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So the graphics in N64 version of Star Fox, I think Obviously, the frame rate's a hell of a lot better. It's a lot more of a smoother experience. Right, the graphics look great. There's textures. I've always been a big fan of the N64's 3D models compared to PlayStation and Saturn. I like PlayStation games. Don't get me wrong, but I always found the jaggies were too much. Right, the angles on polygons were awful. They were a lot smoother on N64. The jaggies.
Well, that's
what they
because the
call it.
N64 had the built-in anti-aliasing in the hardware.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's definitely nicer. The one negative, though, is the freaking fog is awful. I mean, it's awful in a lot of N64 games, but it's particularly bad in Star Fox.
Yeah, N64 games have a very distinct look. Like, honestly, you could probably look at the same game on multiple platforms, and if one of them is N64, you could probably easily tell which one is N64, right?
Right.
I gotta wonder if like they gave developers like, you know, add fog is like literally like a line of code on the 64, and every developer's like, sweet, we're done.
Make blurry.
Yeah.
Soften, hard soften.
Like to its credit, there's certain levels where it kind of fits. There's a few planets where like they're underwater or they're like a lava planet where the fog is almost atmospheric and it kind of works. But the opening stage on Canaria, it's like this beautiful paradise green fields planet, but on the N64 it's got foggy weather. Right? In terms of graphics, there's there was one level early on in the N64 version. I don't think there's an equivalent on the Super Nintendo, where basically straight up Independence Day, this flying mothership eventually flies onto the screen. Hundreds of ships are flying out of it, and you got to, I'm hitting my mic again. Hundreds of ships are flying out of the mothership, and you got to take them down, and eventually you got to go and hit the core. That whole sequence, I don't know if you guys have seen video of that before, is just wildly done so well on the N64, and I haven't seen anything quite like that. This game, compared to the Snes, does have some open areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something worth talking about. Is the N64 introduced the oh my gosh, what are the tanks called? The Landmaster
or Land Rover or
Landmaster. That's what it was. Landmaster tanks, and it introduced what the game calls all range mode, where instead of going on the rail, you were in an open field where you could turn around, do U-turns, things like that. And that was pretty cool. Both of those things were pretty neat.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was a cool aspect in some of the boss battles where you're playing, you're playing around, so you're literally flying around it. Like we just saw that one boss fight that you literally played on the YouTube. It felt neat. You felt like you were in a real dogfight instead of being on the line and just being forced to go wherever you're going. You could do a backflip and turn the whole screen around and then come back in for another run at a boss. I thought that added to that extra oomph into the game of playing playing the fighter pilot.
Yeah, I definitely like the all range mode. The dogfighting sequences are really cool. And there's a few stages where you have people actually getting in your tail and you have to do the flip around them and the view changes. It's really, really rad. So I think graphic wise, I think they're both fantastic. My only issue again is the frame rate with the SNES version, but I think both look really great. In terms of like N64 games that compare graphic wise, I think Star Fox stands really high up the list. This is one of my favorite games on the system, to be honest with you.
I think the majority of my experience with Star Fox 64 was the multiplayer mode.
I only played a little bit of that, actually.
I had a few friends who were super into this game, and so we would get together, and if it wasn't Mario Kart 64, it was Star Fox 64 multiplayer. And you put in the cheat so that you could also play as the character instead of one of the vehicles. And
I forgot about that, actually. So you're on the ground as an actual character shooting up, right?
Right. You've got
like
this cannon on your shoulder that you're running around with, and you can either be the Landmaster tank, the R-Wing, or whatever character you're playing as, just hoofing it and trying not to get bombed to hell,
Yeah,
I never did play the codes. I remember the tanks and stuff, though. The tanks were fun. I thought adding that extra vehicle into the game added that spice to the different levels. So you wanted to go on a different path so you can use one of the other terrain vehicles, and that was a cool addition to the game itself.
Well, the N64 also had a submarine. I remember the submarine level. I think you had 2 stages like that, where you had to go where you're underwater, basically, because everybody loves underwater levels in these games. Yeah.
Hate them.
All right.
I hate them like tuna and my mac and cheese.
You have not lived, sir, until you've had cheddar cheese on your tuna casserole. I just don't know what else to say. Like, maybe we should add a recipe book to the Press B Discord and talk about recipes, and like I'll give you all
Dr.
the facts on Canadian cuisine.
Press B to
Tuna
cancel.
casserole.
Press B to cancel this recipe.
Press
Look.
B to casserole.
Oh,
Press
Jeff
B.
mentioned that the all range mode was technically introduced in Star Fox 2, but the game was never released. It's worth mentioning that that game was canceled at 95% completion because of the release of Saturn and PlayStation, and with the 3D shooters cut like Panzer Dragoon. Star
Yeah.
Fox 2 would not have visually measured up to those games, and so that's why it got canned at 95%, which is kind of wild.
That's a
No.
trip.
that's
That
the
is a
one that
trip.
was released on the Switch.
SNES Classic.
Whatever yeah, right.
It's on both the Switch online service and this little guy.
Yeah, the SNES Classic. Yeah.
The
I
SNES
never
Classic.
did get around to playing that. Is it improved on the frame rate, or is it the same as the first game?
I don't remember how the frame rate was, but I have tried it. And this is actually a good segue into talking about Star Fox Zero as well, because Star Fox Zero went and took and implemented the Walker or Strider or whatever they called it, where the R-Wing transforms into a mech that walks, right?
Yeah.
And that comes from Star Fox 2, but since Star Fox 2 hadn't been officially released, they were like, well, let's use that this time, right? So so they incorporated that into Star Fox Zero, and it was a really cool and interesting gameplay style that changed it up from the Landmaster and the R-Wing quite a bit. And going back and trying that in Star Fox 2, it was actually pretty strong in Star Fox 2 as well. Like,
Okay.
obviously, it looked like Star Fox, where, it's a handful of polygons representing this mech, but it's it was still pretty neat.
So Star Fox Zero was the Wii U version of Star Fox, right?
Yes, Star Fox Zero was the second reboot of the franchise.
I
Yeah,
thought
and
that
we
there
should-
was one on. Wasn't there one on the GameCube?
There were a couple of games on GameCube. I believe it was Star Fox Assault, which was actually a new story within Star Fox universe, and then Star Fox Adventures, which was more of a Zelda-like. That was just like, here, have a little bit of Star Fox in the opening and for the end boss, and all these upgrades that you get throughout the game and all the gameplay loop you play throughout the game don't matter for the final boss.
That's because
I was
Star Fox
pissed.
Adventure was based on, I think it was called Dinosaur Planet. It was a whole totally different game, and then they basically scrapped it and put Star Fox on top of it. That's where we got Crystal from. Crystal and Dinosaur Planet looks quite a bit different than what we got in Star Fox Adventure. I have not played very much of that game, but it's definitely drastically different.
I
it-
liked it. I
Mhm.
know it gets a lot of hate. It was a cheesy story, like the Prince Triceratops character that wanders around with you. He verges between comical in his presentation and obnoxious. So,
So maybe we can talk about
but
characters then, because he's obnoxious. How would he compare to Slippy? I fucking hate Slippy.
you know
Everybody
what?
hates
Dealing with
Slippy.
what was his name? I don't remember what the character's name was, the prince in Star Fox Adventures, but he was less obnoxious than Falco and Slippy.
Yeah.
Falco and Slippy just annoy the crap out of me constantly.
Yeah, I could not stand Slippy. How every time he fly, because occasionally in Star Fox, one of your wingmates will fly into the screen. Often you end up shooting the damn guy, but half of them they're flying onto the screen, and you're supposed to save them by taking the guy in their six. And Slippy's more often than not seems to show up on the screen and need your help, and he's just his voice was always aggravating, and that's one area where the Super Nintendo I kind of prefer. It didn't have voices; it had kind of the made up voices. Yeah, exactly, and it sounds
The
okay.
voices
But in the
are
N64 version, they actually voiced all the characters, and I can't stand his voice.
You couldn't. I mean, you could put faces to names now or faces to voices. It was cool. I mean, we wouldn't have such great lines as "do a barrel roll" or an
Well,
opener for this episode, for that matter. I mean,
Yeah.
we could have done Good Luck. That was in both of them. That was good. I know that line.
So looking,
doesn't even sound
at,
like anything. It's
looking at my my mind palace here. It looks like the GameCube actually got 2 Star Fox games.
Did they?
Star Fox Adventures and then Star Fox Assault. And
Yeah,
Star
I
Fox
mentioned
Oh,
one
I
of
remember
those.
Assault. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wolf
It
mentioned
looks
Assault.
it looks awfully Star Fox-ish from the
Star
image
Foxy.
Yeah, from what I understand, Assault was a decent game and it was reviewed well, but there was like almost no fanfare behind its release. I honestly don't know anybody who played the game.
Yeah,
Like
I don't
in
remember it at
person,
all.
I don't know anybody who played it. And
Yeah.
I learned about it well after its release. So like it was an under the radar release for some reason, except for people who were probably the biggest of Star Fox fans who were really paying attention to the release schedule for it, you know?
Mhm.
It looks like looking at the reception, it talks about how the apparently there's some ground missions where you are on foot, and I guess the controls were pretty poor.
Ah,
Yeah. But for a
So-
game like Star Fox, as long as the flying is solid, I mean, that should be the meat of any Star Fox game, Star Fox Adventure notwithstanding.
I agree.
I did want to mention about
Can you
how
imagine?
we were. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, can you imagine Star Fox playing as one of the characters, like the actual people, and it looking like Space Harrier? How funny that shit would look like! Like if Star Fox had a jetpack and he's flying around doing the Space Harrier thing, I'd be like, wow, okay, guys, we're running out of ideas here. Huh?
Sounds like a ROM hack idea for me. So
Put
Star
it on the wheel of
Fox-
pain.
Put it on the Wheel of Pain. Yeah. There's so much on that Wheel of Pain. You have no idea. So we got Star Fox on the SNES, and then it's kind of retold in the N64 version, only to be retold again in Star Fox Zero. So I find that interesting. I know it's not the first game franchise for Nintendo's done this. Like Nintendo, I mean, realistically, what's a story in Zelda half the time? Half the time it's the same idea, right? It's the hero saving Zelda, defeating Ganon. They reuse a lot of the same ideas. Final Fantasy, same idea, right? So
Mario, how many times have you saved Princess Peach? I mean,
Peaches,
Right.
peaches, 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 peaches.
we love you, Jack Black, notable listener of the podcast.
I love you.
I actually have something I wonder about because I do remember learning about Fox's father in earlier games, James McLeod, but he was a very big part of the plot for Star Fox Zero.
He was in the
And I'm
N64
wondering
version a
if he
little
was-
bit, but not a whole lot. He was I think he was almost hidden. I think you had to do something to unlock him in the last level, I thought.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because in Zero, like he's kind of a major driving plot point in the story, and he gets brought up a few times, and then at the end, he's literally talking to Fox. And like he's voice acted and talking to him and everything and telling you which way to go through this labyrinth as you're approaching Andros.
Yeah, that was in the N64 version too. Let me check my mind
Was it?
palace because he
I never
was, but you
beat
had
the
to do something to
N64
get
one,
him.
So
Only remember the only reason I remember him is as a
I
fox,
thought
but with
the end-
sunglasses. So
yeah,
Well, there's the wolf guy. I know him, like the rival.
yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
but
he was in it as
thought,
well.
I thought the end of the SNES version was the same as the 64, just obviously beautified, like mad. It wasn't a weird face. You were actually fighting Andros's face instead of just the weird
Cube thing.
polygonal silver face that was supposed to be Andros. Because I always looked at 64, honestly, as Star Fox remastered. Like in my opinion, because there were obviously some new additions and some aspects to the two games, but they were almost literally the same thing with more beef to it. You know what I mean? Or just more added the all arrange mode, the different vehicles, but it still did. You were still starting in the same place, you still ended in the same place, and you were still going after the same thing. And much of the bosses are very similar, except for whatever aspects or attributes that you did differently.
They definitely heavily pull from the Super Nintendo design of bosses and enemies and layouts, but there are differences. So I just looked it up. So Star Fox 64 does have James Fox in it. If you, depending on the path you take in the N64 version, if it says here, if you fought at Area 6 or Bulls, wherever that is. But I know if you take a different path, he does show up at the end when you're on Planet Venom, and when you're escaping the planet as it's blowing up, he helps you get through it. So he is in the game as a cameo
that might have
if
been
you
what
unlock
it
it.
was.
Yeah. But you're right, Wolf. He's definitely more central, looks like, in Zero, which is interesting. Again, they're taking, I think you mentioned offline, they're taking the N64 plot, which is expanded from the original Snes version, and they're expanding it even further in Zero.
Yeah. And I talk a lot of shit about Star Fox Zero and I tell people about it, but honestly, I don't think it was that terrible of a game. I think what made it bad was the shoehorned Wii gamepad controls.
Yes.
It literally required the gamepad. It required two screens. You had to pay attention to both screens to know what the hell was going on at all times, and it was stupid. So, and you could swap which one was which. Yeah, basically, you could swap which one was which. So you could have, the R-wing flying around on your TV, and then you could see what the first person scope on the gamepad, or you could swap it. So not only are you targeting with the first person scope, but you're also steering to avoid stuff and dodge ships and bullets and all that.
You're like
the other
gunner
screen.
and pilot
So
at the same time.
Yes, it's too much for one
Awful.
person, and that was the problem. I actually think it would have been a great game had they sort of meshed the two and let you, choose one style or the other for your controls and let that be that. But the fact that you have to do two screens through it is what's frustrating for that game. Otherwise, it was a strong game mechanically, visually, and the story actually had me interested. I cared, right?
There's a picture of Miyamoto on the Wikipedia page for Star Fox Zero, and there's the screen in front of him, and he's literally holding the gamepad up, like next to the screen. I think it just matches exactly what you're talking about. I think you just basically play the game like this.
Yes, you do. I was doing that. And at the time, I had a 40-inch TV mounted on my wall to play it, right? So I had to sit back in my chair, and I'm like...
It's like early VR. It's immersive.
Like, it was so stupid, because I'm like back and forth, just rapid eye movement, back and forth to both monitors, trying to make out what's happening.
You get whiplash playing that.
Yeah. That was my biggest gripe with that game, but
you're not alone in that.
It was a nice. It made good strides forward from what the N64 version was. Aside from that,
it definitely looks cool. I mean, I've never played Zero myself, but I mean, it's only 2016 it came out. It looks cool. Okay, it's showing me the Wii pad and the thing on the screen. That is
so
cumbersome.
I know that, obviously Breath of the Wild was released on the Wii U and then, brought to the Switch, and it has all of the Breath of the Wild pieces still in it. Like, it talks about the gamepad, right?
It's the Wii U
like
pad.
But, but do you think that that's the reason that Star Fox Zero never came to the Switch?
I think it's
of that. Or
I think it would be too hard for them to port it. I don't think we'll ever see Star Fox Zero again, honestly.
Okay.
That's a shame.
I think it would be cool if they figured out a way to do it, but I think it would require too much work on the basic engine that they don't want to put the time and money into, so we won't get it.
Yeah,
we'll probably see a third reboot first.
This is cool. So it uses the little, what are they? Are the akimbo statues or whatever?
Amiibos.
Amoeba.
Yeah.
Kimbo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you
Kimbo.
can- I got these. I got these on here. I got the Spider-Man one for something else that I got a while back. But you can drop the Star Fox and the Falco characters, and if you actually you can get the retro wings from the Snes version that are playable.
That's
in this.
neat. Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
neat if you drop them on and do whatever you got to do. So
By the
I'll
way,
watch a video on it. It's cool.
Total aside, since we're talking amiibos, Super Mario Brothers movie where Bowser is in his white tux to get married. I have that amiibo from Super Mario Galaxy. I saw that. I'm like, I have that amiibo. That's great. Anyway, total aside.
So, and when it comes to, so Star Fox Zero, you're not wrong in that take, Wolf. A lot of people hated the motion controls. I mean, I think we've all said before, Nintendo has this problem with trying to shoehorn motion controls into a lot of different games, and it doesn't work in a lot of them. Like, I think they just announced,
It's one thing to incorporate motion controls as an addition, and Breath of the Wild is a really great example of how it used motion controls without forcing them down your throat, right?
Yeah.
Because they were designing it for two platforms, the Switch and the Wii U. So they wanted to use the gyro, the little screen, make it to where you're aiming and you can rotate the thing and it works great. And I mean, I have had a night where I was playing that game on the couch and like upside down and backwards, and my wife's just looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "A puzzle." But the fact that like had Star Fox done something like that, I don't think it would have been so bad, because that's how you were aiming in the game, was rotating the gamepad. But the fact that you had to steer the ship on one monitor and aim on the other one, it was frustrating. And like I said, you could swap screens. So if you were steering on the little gamepad screen and aiming on the TV, you're still winging the gamepad around to aim on the TV. But now you're like flying a glare at your face when you're trying to steer. And
like, I liked the Wii gamepad quite a bit. I thought it was a really innovative controller. And I know it's a big meme to say everything on the Wii U gets ported to the Switch, but I can see what you're saying where some games just don't work. Like, they brought Mario Maker 2 to the Switch. I like it, but the Mario Maker on the Wii U, infinitely better because of that gamepad. Because it's a touch screen, it was a gamepad. You were using that in front of your lap while you had the big screen in front of you. Like, that 2-screen display from Mario Maker just made sense. And when they tried to do something different on the Switch, not nearly the same. So there are some games where, without dramatic change, I don't think it works. You never know. I mean, they brought Metroid Prime to Switch and they radically changed the controls. So maybe they'll do something with a Star Fox. But I think you guys are right. They're more likely to reboot it for the 5th time.
The control
hold on.
change isn't that big of a deal, because they also did it with Skyward Sword from the Wii.
Yeah.
Right.
So I keep hoping they'll do Twilight Princess for the Switch, honestly, because I still want to play through that game and have it. I just don't want to be winging around a Wii remote.
Yeah.
But
question.
Yes.
First, you're saying that Star Fox Zero will never make it to the Switch? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think it will. Are you going to tell me they've already announced it?
I'm going to tell you that in 2020, Star Fox Zero Deluxe is now available on the Switch to play.
No kidding. I wonder what that is then. How'd they fuck to do that?
It took away the dual screen. It's all done on one screen now.
I wonder if it's better.
Huh.
Seriously?
I was just going through a bunch of Star Fox videos and it pulled up and it said 2020 Star Fox coming to Switch.
Press me to cancel. Your home of dedicated research.
Jeff points out that Star Fox Command on the DS used the stylus. I remember trying Star Fox Command on my DS, and I remember that stylus control like steered me away from it. I, may or may not have had a way to play games on my DS without. Anyway, and so, I had the try before I buy, and I remember that I did not like using that stylus control. I mean, we've talked about this where as innovative as Nintendo is, and I love the innovation, there's also a lot of like, fits and starts as it were. And I think that the stylus for Star Fox Command was one. It sounds like the dual screen on the Wii U for Star Fox Zero was one. So honestly, I feel like the Switch controller, turning the Switch controller on its side when it's this big in your hands, is a failure as well.
All right, so let me backtrack just a bit. It's not out yet, but it was announced in 2020 that it was coming out, and I'm still looking to see.
The most recent stuff I've found was in 2022. It sounds like the creator, I don't know if that's Miyamoto or not, because this just says creator wants Star Fox Zero Switch port. So
here, I'm gonna throw this in our
I don't know.
Discord.
It sounds like
maybe because there was Ubisoft made a game called Starlink, I believe it was, which was like a generic space shooter. But they managed a coup with Nintendo. They got the rights to add Star Fox characters into their game. Starlink was this game where there was physical toys you snap together to build a ship and scan it into the game. So they actually released a special version with Star Fox parts. You could build the R-Wing in Starlink. And people seemed to like that, seemed to think it was they dug it. And I remember the reviews at the time were like, they should have just made this fully Star Fox. So there was that. That was a couple years ago, but I never did get a chance to play that.
I threw the link in cool links in our Discord so people can go and check it out and see how legit it is.
I see that, but no, that's fan made.
Is it fan made? It looks like legit.
The description says fan made.
We're talking, and I don't want to talk with you guys, but it looked pretty legit. Well done, fan. You got me.
Yeah, you got me. It's like those movie trailers. You're looking for a movie trailer, and they get hit with the fan trailers every freaking time. This isn't Spider-Man 4.
It's like Adam Driver as Star Fox.
Yeah, in a Wes Anderson directed.
Wes Craven.
That's something to wonder, though. Like, it seems like every Nintendo platform generation, they leave one of their major IPs out, right?
Yeah.
Does it seem like Star Fox is the one getting left in the dust on the Switch?
It kind of feels like
putting a Star Fox?
Which would seem. It seems so weird to me because the Switch, which I have right here, seems like a perfect Star Fox like port player.
Right?
To me, it feels like it would work really well on here, personally. So I don't know.
There was a 3DS port of Star Fox 64, I believe. I think that did well.
Yeah,
probably.
But there's some franchises that just don't sell well. Like Metroid's another one where Metroid Dread, even, which was really well received the other year, I think it only sold 7 million copies, which to Nintendo is peanuts. So we're not likely to get another Metroid game for another who knows how many years. So Star Fox, I know the last couple
they just released the Prime stuff, so they're probably banking on Prime being a little more.
Yeah, hopefully Prime, the remaster of Prime, sold well. I hope that happened.
Yeah,
I don't know because I thought
Dread got my brother.
Well, there is Prime 4 that's in development, but I don't know how long that's going to be. Like, the rumor was that it got scrapped a couple times before restarting development again. Like, it's been in the making for a while. They showed a logo a number of years ago, so that's eventually coming.
Yeah, before the Switch was released, right? Like, we're talking E3 2015 or something, I think, is when they did that.
Yeah. So, maybe another Star Fox game. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, we did get a little bit with, like, Nintendo's been partnering with Ubisoft more and more. The Mario vs. Rabbids franchise that Ubisoft did, so they had Mario characters in it and Donkey Kong characters. And then they did have the cameo of Star Fox in their shooting game. So that might be in their head enough for now, at least until the Switch 2, right? Who knows?
You'd think Star Fox also being present in Smash Brothers would be like, I mean, for Christ's sake, Bayonetta is they just released Bayonetta 3
in Smash Brothers.
So I'm just, but there's
Adam
if you get
Driver,
left out of Smash.
Adam Driver in a Star Fox hoodie in a Wes Craven film is in Smash Brothers.
Or the Slippy the Frog that also doubles as a goblin glider is also part of the Smash Brothers team.
That's right. I've heard that they're thinking of putting Sick Jake in as the first
I believe
Canadian.
it. And his special attack will be the disliking of Dr. Pepper and the tuna casserole cheese smash.
Look, I'm sorry you guys don't know good fine dining in Canada. Okay, it's not all poutine and beaver tails up here. I like to put cheese
Poutine,
on
power
other
glove.
things too.
And
Power
it
of
better
love.
be what? Chicken gravy. It can't be anything else.
Yeah.
Look, don't fuck with poutine. Okay, all right. Okay,
Leave my
fries
chicken
with the
gravy
skin, chicken
where it
gravy, and squeaky cheese curds. You don't fuck with success. You don't put beef gravy on there. You don't put that powdered
beef
shit.
gravy
You don't put mozzarella
bullshit.
cheese. There's certain things with poutine. This is serious business up here. Anyway, well, we went off tangent on food several times now.
If we don't go off tangent, then we're not press B to cancel.
That's
Like,
true.
It's going back to the core concept of our episode here. Is it bad that my favorite Star Fox iteration is Star Fox Zero? As much frustration as it caused me?
That's your favorite?
No, because it looks cool.
I don't think
If
I-
it didn't have the mechanics, it'd be a great game, right?
It's the only one I've beaten. The traditional Star Fox game, I should say, because like I said, I beat Adventures.
Did it have any first or any non-ship like Adventures or whatever it was that had the ground? Did it have, or Assault? Was it only ship combat, or did it have a ground mechanism?
That I don't know. I've not played
in
Assault.
Zero,
I just
in
know
Zero.
about it.
No,
Oh, in Zero, yeah, the Landmaster was in Zero. The mech was in Zero. It did the all range mode thing. It did all that stuff. So, it took everything that had appeared in Star Fox prior, including Star Fox 2, and threw it all into another reboot of Star Fox 1, and was like, "Here you go. This is our opus magnum now." Right?
And then
Magnum opus, whatever you want to call it, but.
I like Opus.
I mean, maybe that's what it is maybe the reason we keep getting retold the story is that they are looking for the technology to catch up to where they want the story to be, right?
are you saying this is like
They're
James
just
Cameron and
polishing it up.
Avatar?
It's always a remaster.
It
Yeah.
might be,
It's just-
or Star
It's the
Wars
remaster of the remaster, the re-release of the remaster.
or Star
James
Wars.
Ca-
when George
James
Lucas
Cameron's
decided
Star
to,
Fox needs technology of the Unreal 5 and 3D cameras before we can develop the true cinematic experience that we all deserve. That's
You should
coming
put
soon. on
that
Switch
in an
2.
AI picture, James Cameron's Star Fox or Michael Bay's Star Fox, and it'll literally just be explosions.
Michael Bay's Star
Jeff
Fox is all blue
accurately
and
points
green.
out. Jeff accurately points out that Star Fox Zero also had the gyrocopter. I had forgotten about that entirely. So
The
it
gyrocopter for dinner.
threw so many ideas at you, and none of them felt out of place. Like going from one vehicle to the next didn't ever feel cumbersome. It was just like, all right, this is how this level is, because I know sometimes when I would play Star Fox 64, you get to the Landmaster section, and it's like, well, this is frustrating. You've got a jet. Why am I on the ground? And I know they explained that away, but it was still frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Air's
in
too
Star
heavy
Fox
for
Zero-
flight. We need to walk.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're out
But-
of jet fuel. We only have land fuel.
We're running to the gas station.
And I felt like the boss fights in Zero were interesting and applied new ideas that I hadn't seen in Star Fox before in some cases. So it was a solid game. I would like to see it not so hindered by two screens.
I wonder how it plays in emulators
And-
today, because the Wii U emulators are pretty robust, and you can do the two screen thing on one display. I'm wondering how that works. I actually kind of want to go back and play it now because I love the N64 Star Fox. The Super Nintendo one, I look, it's no Elden Ring, but I put 90 minutes into that son of a bitch, and I think I'm qualified to talk about Super Nintendo Star Fox, and I think it's terrible. I just don't like it. But the N64 version is one of my favorite games in the console. It might even be a top 3 on the N64. Actually, probably is. Just the controls and the music and the atmosphere. I thought it was fantastic. And I saw Zero, and I was gonna buy it, but the motion controls and the bad reviews is what scared me off. But if there's a way to do it today and not have that as be much of a headache, I'd be all over it. Because I'd love the Star Fox lore. I think it's cool. I'd love to see how they did it again and expanded it.
You got to read the item descriptions to really get into the Star Fox.
It's the real story of Peppy Hare and his gritty origin is found in the manga, but maybe they'll realize it in James Cameron's port.
No,
I
think-
wonder. Go ahead, Sinister.
I was just gonna touch on the Super Nintendo version. I really think at the time it was an innovative game. I think it actually was a very good game at the time. The problem is you take off the nostalgia glasses, and in a world of today, the game is clunky. It is clunky.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Certainly is. But we don't play it because we're like, this thing runs so good. You play it because you remember having fun playing it. Like, I didn't fire it up and go like, I totally remember running this at 29.9 frames per second. This is fucking great. This is so goddamn smooth. You didn't have a shooter like that I can recall that was that popular. And you're adding the polygons and the ships, and you can knock your wing off, and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it at that time. That's why you put it on. If you want to play a good Star Fox game, you put on Star Fox 64 and you enjoy the hell out of that. But
you don't remember sitting in front of your CRT TV going, "Holy shit, we reached 17 frames per second. Let's go."
Yeah, we're killing it. I was timing it. I was clocking it. You could track them with your eyes, 15
You
frames.
could.
That's pretty
Yeah.
obvious.
Back in my day, I played Zelda on a black and white TV, so I think I know a thing or two about technology. Okay, so I noticed the 15 frames per second. But you're right, though. There is very few games that were doing what Star Fox did on console. I can't even think of one, to be honest with you. It was all on PC, right? Like TIE Fighter, like Sinister said, or Freelancer later on. That's the game I think of when I think of space shooters. Very few on console.
Honestly, I remember playing because I played X-Wing. I played X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I played that whole series. And I mean, yeah, it performed better, but you know what? Back then we still were like, hey, look, 20 frames. I didn't even note 20 frames. I was just like, this is playable, and I could shoot, X-Wings down or TIE Fighters down. This is great.
Yeah.
Do the explosions of the X-Wings blown up and their little pieces like flipping through space. That was the coolest thing ever. I guarantee if I jumped on that right now, I'd be like, oh my God, man, I was easily entertained.
Now, you know what holds up? You know what does hold up is find an emulator and play the arcade version of Star Wars with the vector graphics.
Oh, that game's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. That's cool.
With the controls that were like ka-gunk, like
Yeah.
Anyway,
Arcade One makes a mini
tangent.
cab with that. That's pretty awesome. Okay.
That's cool.
Jeff's keeping us task. We did not discuss music in these games.
Ah, yes.
I know who mentioned Sinistar. Sinistar, you mentioned the boss music. Yeah.
It's one of those sounds, you see an image and you hear a sound, right? And to me, like if you go look at the Star Fox page on Wikipedia, the first Star Fox, it has one of the, kind of the mini boss battles or whatever. And I remember that, like, just the chords, the dun dun, coming in, and it's just epically good.
Was that in the Snes game? I don't think so.
It was.
Was it? I have to go back and listen to that again. I only made it to the boss a couple times.
The music of the first stage, Corneria, like, it's unfortunately the original game chugs so much that the music gets you so hyped, and then the game's like, I'm gonna go about 3/4 that speed, maybe half.
Yeah, right. Shit, this boss music, the final boss music's got this really high paced like organ. It's really like I can already feel myself grabbing the controller, my hands starting to sweat as I'm taking on Andros. It's definitely got that appeal to it, that high stress intensity, we're gonna kill this thing kind of thing.
Hearing the noise and waiting for like the port to open so you could shoot like the the glowy bit, like
yes, the sound effects were amazing in Star Fox. I remember that. Now that you say it, I can hear it in my head as the flaps open up.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But like that's one of the good things that Star Fox had going for it. Like I talk shit on the reboot thing, but with each reboot, they have improved on so much. Like they already had strong music to work with on Super Nintendo. Then they ported it to N64 and the music quality got bumped up. And then they get it on Wii U and the music quality again shot to the moon, and it's like these
Does it
are
have that
really
same feel? Does it have that same feel as like the
Yes.
Super
It
Nintendo?
still feels like Star Fox music, and it
Okay.
still gets you in the mood for the stage. Like it nails it. And with each new iteration of this game, the gameplay more matches the pace of the music and the feel of the music because the technology is there. So it's quite nice. Like I will say on the N64 game, I was super frustrated that I kept crashing into the hills, like the little
Yeah.
foothills, and taking damage. It's like, it's frustrating. But I was also playing on the Switch on the emulator. And so, I'm not playing with the proper controls. So I'm like struggling. How do I do a flip? Or a loop or
Well,
whatever,
And 64 emulation, especially on something like this, like the Switch, is not great.
It's actually not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ran pretty well on there.
Okay.
Like when it got
I
announced
just-
for the Switch emulation, I actually that was one of the few games I was excited to play on the Switch expansion pass was Star Fox. I spun it up and showed my kids. My kids had no interest in it, none. But I ran through it in one run, and it was a fantastic time. I loved it. I think it's a really good version.
Yeah, I always remember the music being on point for sure. The
Absolutely.
music was on point for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
As so many Nintendo games have always had, the music is on point, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there are a couple studios that I think of when I think of music. Sierra Games back in the day, where they hired actual composers to come in and do, and then of course, the Nintendo juggernaut of sound, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Well,
fan.
so it's worth mentioning that it's not the usual composer from Nintendo who did the Star Fox soundtrack.
Okay.
Who was
Yeah,
it?
Right?
he emulated it
They've
pretty
got
damn
Koji
well,
Kondo who does like 3/4 of their library, but
Right.
Hajime Hirasawa did the Star
Mm.
Fox music.
Okay.
I mean, he's
And-
on pace. He's on par to sound just like all the other composers. I mean, I don't want to say like it's carbon copy, but I can't tell the difference between that to like F-Zero. I mean, their styling is so similar between the two. It's a perfect pairing.
It sounds like the sound font from the Mega Man X games used in Star
Mhm.
Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps with that feel of getting things fast and frenetic and upbeat. And
Right.
I love that.
Everything's got
And-
some kind of it's got a lot of timpani like drums feel to it. So you feel like you're at
Mhm.
war, like you're going into battle, you're going in to do the stuff, and it makes you feel that, like you said, the first level of Karina or whatever, however you pronounce that.
Corneria.
It's got that, yeah, Corneria. It's got like the timpani drum beat. And you feel like you're marching in as you fly into the area to start fighting off. It's cool.
Jeff does point out that there was one portion that did have synthesized voice, which is the emergency all fighter scramble on the SNES, which I don't
Well, that and
know.
the good
Good luck.
luck, right?
Yeah. Yeah, what other games had digitized voice like that at the time? At least
There's one that came
SNES.
much earlier on the NES. Double
Okay.
Dribble.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Blades of Steel have it as
What
well.
about the singing
Skate
in
or
Final
Die.
Fantasy VI?
No.
I mean,
That
that's
doesn't sound like digitized voice to me.
It is funny to me,
I
though,
love
like-
Turtle from The Little Mermaid.
I love digitized voice. It's where the reason I picked the name Sinistar is because I remember walking into an arcade as a very young child and hearing, "I am Sinistar." I love
Yeah.
it. So
Digitized voice was really more of a thing in fighting games at this time, though.
that's
Mhm.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I was gonna say, I do like the voices in the N64 version in some capacity because it's something that Nintendo kind of gave up on in a lot of their games, even now on the Switch. Like one of the critiques on the recent Pokemon
Yeah.
games is there's no bloody voice acting whatsoever. And like even Breath of the Wild, there's some in some of the memories and stuff, but it's very little voice dialogue.
They don't want to hire chatters.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
what around that same time you have Mario 64, which is all text boxes, and then just
Right.
woohoo, you know. And then you got what was it? I know Rare is its own development studio, but Rare did Banjo-Kazooie, and they were under Nintendo at the time, I believe.
Mhm.
And
I think so.
man, they were kind of offensive in Banjo-Kazooie in some ways. I don't know if you guys remember.
Some of them are really annoying.
The dude in
for
the
sure.
turban. Oh my.
Oh dear.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
I forgot about him.
Is it a situation like a Cure song that hasn't aged well at all?
Yeah, I guess so. It
Fair.
was
Yeah.
like it's
From the
not
80s,
voice
man.
acted, it's just vocal tones happening
Yeah.
in succession rapidly, and it sounds bad. It's not a good look.
It comes across like Team America World Police maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kinda.
kind of like
okay.
that.
All right. Fair.
Yeah.
So Banjo-Kazooie making the Team America sounds, and then Star Fox looking like Team America.
Mhm.
I actually always thought that was pretty cool, the way they were using the weird, ugly puppets for the Star
Yeah,
Fox advertising. I loved
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Any other final thoughts on Star Fox before we get to our top 100 business?
I would love to see a new Star Fox game, maybe with some additional story. Like a new story, maybe. I don't know. I'm spitting that out there.
If
Just
we get a
expanded
reboot,
plot.
can it be a reboot plus extra story? Maybe like after the fact, like the after
Star Fox
years, but good.
0.5.
Right.
Yeah, Star Fox Zero Gaiden. Do
There
what the
you go.
Kingdom Hearts does. All right.
So
Well-
have we given you guys enough time to come up with your top 100?
No,
Yes.
I'm still looking.
Somebody's gonna have to go before me.
Okay. Well, I've got mine.
I love how
so
Jake's like, don't forget,
Oops.
we got to get to our 100 of them points at me, and then doesn't even have his ready.
I had a couple in my head, and I forgot them though. Sister, you start
I
us
got one.
off. So again, so people who are new to
Yeah.
our podcast, we are assembling a top 100 list of games you need to play according to Press B. We're going to do a future episode where we rank them, but for now, we're just every episode proposing a couple to add to that top 100 list in no particular order right now. So, Sinistar, what do you got?
Well, I think I'm joining GP a little bit. I'm going to call this a sport game. Duck Hunt.
Okay,
We all
just
know
skeet
Duck
shooting.
Hunt.
That's a sport.
Yeah, well, and the reason that I bring it up is because I mean, when you honestly think of, light gun games, what do you think of? You think of Duck Hunt. You may think of a few other games, but really you think of Duck Hunt, right? And
Right.
so and I really have to be careful how I pronounce that. Anyway, it's led to a very fantastic horror VR game that's modern today.
Yeah,
Yeah. The dog is like very memorable,
Hey,
right? The giggle as he's like picking up the ducks or as you miss the birds or whatever,
He's laughing at you. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, as far as accessibility goes, there's no need for a manual for that game. None. You walk into that game, you pull the trigger, you're playing the game,
Right.
So yeah, Duck Hunt, I think for me belongs on the top 100.
good
That's fair.
choice. Good choice.
I can go next if you guys aren't prepped.
Sure, go for it.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. All right, I'll try and drag this out. Jake will probably not appreciate this selection that I'm going to make because, well, he's still playing it. But I'm going to go with Battletoads. Yes, I'm going with Battletoads for our top 100. When we think of highly difficult games that we play through the NES, and when we think NES hard, NES hard, what do we think of? We always think of things like Battletoads, Ninja Gaiden, things along those lines. Battletoads is an extremely popular platforming fighter game that is impossible when you first start it up. But it is one of those games that makes you get better over time just by playing it incessantly and repeatedly, and it's climbing the mountain. It is literally when you finish Battletoads, it's like all your Rocky training has finally paid off, and you beat the fighter, you beat Apollo Creed in the ring. You know, you finally did it, and there's a montage and there's a whole 9 yards. I gotta go with Battletoads just because it's synonymous with NES hard, and synonymous with retro, going back and getting your retro roots. And even no matter how good you are at any platform or anything, Battletoads will still hang you up because there's so much more to it than just platforming. There's the bikes, the racing, the stupid pizza cutters, you know, Klinger Winger, and the first, like, because it was one of the last games that was made for the NES, if I'm not mistaken. So they really kind of went all
91,
out.
I think. Yeah, it was late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they went all out on making the rotating tower for the Dark Queen's tower at the very end, and all the kind of visual stuff that you don't really think about, especially now, of what they had back then. It's pretty impressive if you really think about it.
Yeah.
So I am definitely going to go and put Battletoads on our list.
I want to point out it also belongs in a genre that's very rarely talked about. I mean, it is talked about, but it is very rarely talked about, and that is the rental defeat market.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, this was there were a handful of games that Nintendo basically was like, hey, we got to have games that these people can't beat in a weekend, right?
Right.
Or a
And
lifetime.
that definitely was up there. And the ironic thing was that even as kids, we still rented it. No matter how much it punched you in the face, you still went and got it the next weekend because you're like, I'm going to make it farther. And you never make it past the damn turbo tunnels because you were never that. I was never that coordinated until I was 39 years old, and then somehow got my coordination.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree. Again, we like the same games. I actually think Battletoads is a fantastic game. I love Battletoads. I can't fucking stand it, but I like the game. I think it's a fantastic game. I just hope I can beat it before the year is out. I'm still trying. But I think you're right for everything you said. Like the graphics, the music, that pause music. It's probably the the only game that has jam and pause music. For fuck's sakes, like, that game is good.
Percussion.
Yeah,
it is not a song. It is percussion.
that's great. It's awesome. So
I want to point out Princess Lazy was playing it on her stream, and she kept pausing over and over and over and over again. And 50, her husband, comes into chat and literally types in clap, 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 clap in the exact like quantity and spacing of that percussion.
Did she get to
It's
Klinger
great.
Winger and do the pause trick?
the
Because that's what
buffering,
it does. Oh my god, I hate that.
It's a great game, and if you want an easier version of it, the PAL version is easier, and also the Genesis version is also quite a bit easier. You get more lives. There's certain things that have been taken away to make it a little bit simpler to play through. So if you don't want the challenge of the NES version, there are other ways to play the game and still get the Battletoads experience. It's great.
But do you really play Battletoads if you're not angry by the end of the first level?
Yeah, I'm angry in that stupid ice level. I'm getting there.
Have we really played Battletoads?
I don't know. Do we have Battletoads in Canada? I'm not sure. Okay. So I'll go next.
Clap, 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 clap.
I love that song. It's such a trolly goddamn song.
It's great.
All right.
All right. So my pick is, I narrowed down to two. I'm going to go with GoldenEye. We mentioned, both mentioned multiplayer with Star Fox. When I think N64 multiplayer, it's got to be GoldenEye. I mean, the console had four controller parts built into it. GoldenEye is the one I remember the most fun with my friends, and you remind me of that. I love GoldenEye. It's one of my first experiences with first-person shooters. I didn't get PC till late in my life, and it was just a taste of that multiplayer online shooter, even if you could see what everybody's screen had. But from slappers only to proximity mines, it was so damn good. And the single player was fun even. Like, it was good. Yeah.
Golden Guns, proximity mines. Yeah.
I went to a high school that was known for its Future Farmers of America department. So we had a whole thing for cowboys and whatever. And when we'd pick up the 6-shooter and we'd play that, my friends would always go, "Cowboy up!" Pick it up. So that's been a running joke with my circle of friends back at home. Whenever we play it, we'd be like, "Get the 6-shooter, cowboy up!" And then go.
I played that so much with two friends. I was living at a friend's house at the time, and and every time it would start the dun, 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 one of my friends made up some really horrible lyrics to it that I hear in my head and I'm not repeating. So now every time I watch a James Bond movie, I hear those words. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I would like to point out that if you were playing GoldenEye on the N64 in 4 players, you were each getting less resolution than a Game Boy screen.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, but you had locational reaction by the enemies you were fighting.
I think that's something people don't think about, you know?
Rolled over. Yeah. It was cool. It was a cool concept.
It still looked good.
The resolution of the game was 360 by 237. So you cut those in half.
Yep.
The Game Boy was 160 by 144, which is more than the 160 by 218 you might get.
Game Boy was impressive and it's past, man. I mean, it wasn't a backlit screen, but man, they could do some cool shit with just that green and black lines on there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, we should do an episode.
I just think that's funny.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, Wolf, what do you got?
Good choice.
I have Myst.
Okay.
Ooh. Okay.
Myst was one of those games.
Which system? PC?
We're gonna go with PC, but it was on everything, right? Like it was on PC, it was on PlayStation, it was on Saturn. Was it on N64? I don't think so, but I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. I think it was on like 3DO and everything else. So I mean, Myst has basically been on everything, and it got from what I understand, a full 3D remake not too long ago.
It did,
But
there's a remaster.
It's got like over half a dozen sequels. It's and it was this at the time. It was
Raven something. I think is the
Raven and Raven. Anyway, and
Riven.
then
that
Riven.
was the second.
That's what it is.
Riven, Uru.
Riven.
But then there's
Raven,
been like Myst Exile. There's a bunch of them now.
Yeah. Well, the guys got back together again recently and made. Anyway, go ahead.
But Myst was one of those sort of social phenomena that everybody jumped into. Like my family members who were not gamers were having like they spent months playing this game, filling notepads, right? To complete this game. And
this game gave you zero data. This game gave you like literally like I pressed a button. What the fuck did that?
Get your graph paper out and start drawing maps because that's what you're doing for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, not only that, but then it had like multiple endings based on how much you did and who you went with, and you know whether you decided to, you know, say screw both of them and go with another option that was not really obvious. Like it was a pretty cool game. It took you to interesting, pretty locations. They were all pre-rendered, but at the time it was pretty. And
well, that was one of the impressive things was they talked about. I remember when this came out, and I don't remember the quantity, but I remember when it came out, they talked about the amount of hours that they spent pre-rendering these and then making the FMV portions for when you're moving in the pre-render, right? And I remember it was some odd, you know, ridiculous thousands of hours of rendered content, right? Of pre-rendered content. Anyway,
they were scrappy about stuff too, though. Like, let's talk about some of the sound effects in this game, because here's a story I don't think a ton of people know, and I think it's hilarious. So you'd go into an area where they needed bubble sounds, right? The sound of liquid bubbling. They literally went into their bathroom at the office and stuck a straw in the toilet and blew bubbles in it and recorded that sound. So when you hear bubbles in Myst, it's somebody blowing bubbles in a toilet.
It's toilet water.
Like they were scrappy and they got creative, and it's amazing. I love it.
Fuck filling up the sink. We're going to do it in the toilet.
Yeah. It's just faster. It's more efficient.
That's some Canadian jargon there.
Efficient?
That's like
yes, you wouldn't know what efficiency
like
down there with
on...
your no cheese tuna casserole, motherfuckers.
Now, the sad part of this is that I've never beaten Myst. I've never been able to.
Yeah,
I didn't have it on PC. I had it on the Saturn. And I have tried multiple copies on the Saturn, and each one has frozen on me at some point.
Oh, okay.
The same disc will always freeze at the same point. different discs will always freeze at their respective points for some reason. I don't know if I've just had really bad luck with this game or if pretty much every version of it for Saturn just doesn't work all the way.
Bad
But
pressing.
that's always been my experience, right? Like, yeah. So I never got to beat it, but I bought it on Saturn hoping to play through it because I didn't have a PC. I had a Saturn. So I was like, yeah, I want to play this game. Everybody's loving it. And I loved what I was capable of playing, but I was never able to beat it. And
How many discs was
now
on
I
the
just feel
Saturn?
so defeated by it.
What's
Just
that?
the one, I believe.
Was it just the one? That's impressive that it was on the Saturn, to be honest with you, because Myst is quite a big game.
I couldn't beat it because I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I didn't get very far.
By the
either.
way,
Let's find out.
is a
Yep,
there's-
just one disc.
that's
there's
pretty
kind of
interesting.
there's kind of a spiritual successor to Myst. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I watched somebody play it. It's recent. Hang on, let me see if I can. figure out.
Shit. I think I know the game.
It's-
The guy who did Braid, Jonathan Below's game.
Abduction.
It's a 3D game.
Yeah.
I'm going to say The Messenger, but it's not The Messenger. It's something like that.
Oh, you're thinking of there's a game that makes fun of the concept called The Looker.
No. It's not that one either. Hang on. The Witness. The Witness.
The Witness.
That's what
Yeah,
it is.
Yes.
The Looker is the one that makes fun
Okay.
of The Witness, is what I was saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
The Witness is a
Yeah.
brilliant game that I'm too stupid to beat. I've played The
Well,
Witness.
Right, me
that was-
too.
That was
That's
Myst.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's missed.
Like the idea of
Abduction
this
was one of
mysterious
those types of
island
games,
and
too.
puzzles and
Yeah.
just the atmosphere. Yeah,
Yeah.
The Witness is definitely it.
Yeah.
Hey, it is on sale on Steam. The remaster is for $30. You can actually get the Buy Myst Through the Ages bundle for
Yeah.
$48 right now.
Yep.
So we get the
Well,
horse armor.
I just got Tears of the Don't Sue Me Nintendo, so I'm gonna be busy for a while.
Tears if
Yeah.
Nintendo hears you.
We've talked
Zelda Cry Rule.
We've talked an entire Nintendo episode, so don't sue us, Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Download this now before it's gone.
Before we get canceled by Nintendo. All right, so to wrap it
Press
up real
me to
quick, I mean,
Nintendo.
let's go around the table and shout your channel out if you want to, or whatever you're playing. If you just want to shout out what you're playing currently or working on. Well, come on, shut up. Yes, I'm working at Battletoads. Okay.
No, I
But
thought you stuttered there for a second. It sounds like it's gonna say shout out whatever you're doing stupid. that's what came out of my brain. I was like,
You think
damn,
so
man,
little
that's
of me,
aggressive.
Chard.
Whatever.
We get
stupid
along
shit
so
you're doing,
well.
Tell people about it.
All right. I'll start with me. I haven't been doing much project-wise. I've mostly been playing Tears of the Don't Sue Me. That game is fantastic, as much as Nintendo's being a dick right now. That Zelda game is damn good. I think it might be my favorite Zelda game of all time, and that's hard for me to say because I love Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, but it's so much better than Breath of the Wild was. It's fantastic. And I've also been working at Battletoads. So that's what I've been doing. Wolf, how about you? What have you been playing?
Oh man, I've actually been playing through Resident Evil 5 with a buddy of mine. And
Okay.
it's his first time playing it, so we're having fun.
Yes.
And going to be playing through 6 after that. I've been warned it's awful. I don't care. We're probably going to play it.
Resident Evil multiplayer is still like hard for me to wrap my brain around. I never played past Code Veronica and 3, so that's interesting. I have to look that up.
5 it's an action game. It's not a great
Yeah.
Resident Evil, but it is an absolute blast of a game to play, especially 2-player. Highly recommend.
Awesome. All right. And Sinister, how about you? What have you been working on or playing?
So I kicked off a game I'd been waiting 7 years for since I had backed it on Kickstarter. The System Shock remake. It's a hell of a lot of fun. In particular, that cyberspace bit was a blast. I'm looking
Looked
forward
really
to more
fun.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look what you said.
And yeah, it did. And honestly, I think, to an earlier episode, having 7 years of development, the thing ran incredibly well. It wasn't buggy. It wasn't, anyway. The other thing is I should be back on Monday for more Chrono Trigger, and I will not be adding powdered cheese flavoring to my tuna casserole.
You don't add to the
These
tuna
are good.
casserole. You make the craft dinner, and then you mix in the tuna and the peas. Anyway. Chard, what about you? What have you been playing? You've been playing everything lately.
I have been, I've been gone off the rails.
Yeah, but
We've
you're
been
beating
very
games, though.
That's true. We're very current.
Yeah.
We just finished up the main story in Red Dead Redemption 2, and we're in the epilogue stuff at the end of it. So that was a
how
good.
disappointing was that ending?
There might be more to it, but I figured something like that would happen. But no
Yeah.
spoilers. No spoilers. We are also at the end, towards the end of Resident Evil remake for PC. So we're gonna check that out, and then I might be messing around with Sekiro, but I will be gone for probably about 2 to 3 weeks, going on vacation. So I got a lot to catch up on. But when I get back, Final Fantasy 16, I'm looking at you. So that's what we'll be.
Oh, is that going to be
firing
out?
up. The 22nd, June 22nd is its
Yeah,
release.
very soon.
So
PS5
I have
exclusive.
not
I will be
following,
back on the 20th and promptly picking that up as soon as that Thursday rolls
I
around. It's
still
also
need
my
to play
father's
12
birthday
and
that day,
15.
so happy birthday to me.
Yay.
All right, awesome. All right, guys. Well, if you enjoy this episode, please hit like and subscribe on YouTube or leave us a review. Reviews are free on your podcast apps. You can check us out at pressbtocancel.com. We have a link to our Discord. Come join us. Otherwise, check out our socials, please. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a fantastic week. We are Press B to Cancel.
Welcome to Corneria. I like swords.
Good luck.